when you don't have, a lot of teams don't have a really deep pitching roster, or they won't have a really, you know, easily movable rotation. So sometimes you'll have a situation where it's really important, the space between a game, for saving a pitcher's arm or for deciding who's going to start at first base or something. And a lot of those decisions are made in advance, and coaches know that they have to be flexible, but it definitely kind of throws a wrench in the cogs for a lot of these coaches and teams.
And keep in mind, for us from a broadcasting and from a fan perspective, I was on my way to Muzzy Field up in Bristol, so those two games are now lost for us. We'll be covering lacrosse tomorrow. They'll play those games tomorrow, but we won't be able to broadcast them. Alex was looking forward to Darien softball, and that's off as well, so I'm sure you'll be able to go to the makeup, but you were all
Right.
set to go to the game today.
Well, that being said, I think another factor that's involved here is the fact that a lot of these games are really far away from the hometowns of the teams who are playing in them. And I think that maybe they want to keep people from traveling all the way up there, because
I can't argue that.
As much as it shouldn't happen, I think a lot of teams will blame the SEAC if there's a game, it gets rained out an inning in, and then, a lot of fans will say, oh, they should have called it earlier. I mean, it's cautious. They know that they really don't serve a lot to lose making that decision. So I think that, especially with the travel times, it's not the worst decision in the world.
Certainly, travel had to be factored into it, and you would have hoped they could have made the decision even earlier so people hadn't necessarily left home, so, media folks hadn't left home. Hi. You'd like to have those decisions made a little more in advance. Look, I do empathize with the CIAC. I do. Because I do understand up to a point it is not the easiest decision, and you can't please everyone. And so it goes, and you need to have the thick skin and all that. Anyway, 207, Tim Murphy on the line right now from the Wilton Bolton and the Ridgefield Press, and we bring him in right now. Murph, how are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
We're doing all right. A lot of cancellations around our world today, and, of course, that impacts a lot of teams that we cover.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be talking to Mr. John Hersam, John Kovach today. But one thing to go back to, I think they learned from their lesson with the FCX. Do you remember the FCX softball title game, St. Joseph and Stanford, and they got there and threw one pitch and then had to suspend the game until the next day, where everyone else had pretty much canceled stuff that day. So, that was the FCX, but you probably want to avoid stuff like, especially as Alex said, these long drives.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You don't want these teams getting all the way up there. Now you're dealing with, a lot of reality. You're dealing with gas, and people have to go back and forth, and families taking, time out of work and all this stuff to make the trip there. So I do understand that. But, as I'm sitting here in Shelton and I'm looking out the window and I see sun, that sun is kind of burning through me right now.
Sure. The other thing is the kids have to get out so early from school, and I know finals start this week at Ridgeville High. I know they start Friday, so you probably don't want to lose another day of having the kids get out of class really early.
Murph, how about tomorrow? We've got some good lacrosse tomorrow, including the Warriors, who have had, by FCAC standards, they've had, kind of an average year, but considering what the FCAC is and how good the level of competition is, they're right there in the thick of it with a semifinal appearance tomorrow.
Right, and a lot of people are speculating that tomorrow's semifinal with New Canaan is actually the game for the state title, since the winner will be favored. Wilton's following the same path they did 2 years ago when they won Class M. They had a mediocre 8-8 regular season. They were the 17th seed, wound up beating Barlow to win the state title. This year they're two seeds lower, 19 this year. But again, they've just pretty much destroyed everybody they've played, higher-ranked teams.
Give us an idea of what this Warrior team is, because I haven't seen them yet this year, so I don't know a whole lot about them. I have seen the Ridgefields and Greenwich and, New Canaan and Darien. I've seen all these teams, but I haven't seen the Warriors. Tell me what they're all about and kind of who their key guys are.
They're very balanced. They don't really have a standout, someone who you can say, like, that guy's got to be watched. But they great, good depth. They're pretty strong in all areas. Great face-off specialist in R.J. Romeo. That's one of the big keys for them. Guys like Charlie McGovern, Christian Hansen, Luke Rizzo, scoring goals, Michael Lynch and Michael Brown and Reed Malillo, Harrison Bardwell in midfield, and good defense led by Tyler Mirabili, Jack Dexter, and then Jamison Hill, you might remember from hockey, is
Right.
the goalie. So they're good across the field. They really don't tail off in any area. Again, they don't have, a superstar, but good depth, and Wilton always gets better, as the season goes on. Kind of a testament to their coaching, but that's one thing other coaches will tell you, that John Wiseman gets these guys, better as the season goes on, which you kind of saw. They got blown out by New Canaan in the first game of the regular season, 14-3, and then when they played each other in the FCX playoffs, New Canaan won 10-9.
A lot of people
it should be another. Go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of people talk about how lopsided the FCAC lacrosse tables are. And, if you look at the results, it does paint Wilton as kind of one of the weaker teams, just in that they've lost to Ridgefield, they've lost to New Canaan, they've lost to Darien. But they have had huge wins against some of the teams that are, considered by a lot of people definitely competitive. I mean, for a lot of people, it's kind of a top couple teams and then the rest of the field. Where do you think Wilton fits into the whole equation? Because for me, it's kind of hard to peg them on either the top or the bottom.
In statewide?
I would say more in terms of the FCAC, and then how that kind of factors into where we peg them against New Canaan in this upcoming game.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're not the cream of the crop in the FCAC. You can illustrate it by their loss in the quarterfinals, and they were 7-8 during the regular season. But they get two things help them playing in the FCAC, getting good competition, and then Class M. Really, it's New Canaan's the other tough FCAC school, with Darien moving up to Class L. So they really have kind of a clear path. It's harder to win the FCAC title than to win a state title, really, because you're going to split up some of the teams in the state tournament. I mean, Class L is definitely harder, but I don't know. Possibly it might be better if they went back to the Division I and Division II model, where you'd have all the FCAC teams in one division.
Yeah, it might be better, Murph. And when I look at the teams that the Warriors have played in their schedule this year, their losses are to Fairfield Prep, Yorktown out of New York. They lost. They lost to New Canaan. They lost to Ridgefield. They lost to Darien, Greenwich, Staples, Ludlow. Are you following a trend here? I mean, these are the top teams that they were dealing with.
Exactly. You're right. That says it. I mean, they play a tough schedule. They're a good team. They're just not quite there with the other powers, the elite in the FCAC. But, they get to the state tournament, and you put them in a bracket with pretty much New Canaan's the only other FCAC power in there. So really it opens it up. And these seedings are nonsensical when it comes to predicting what's going to happen. I mean, Wilton's won all three games on the road against higher seeded teams. 14th Bunnell, they won 18-4. Berlin, number 3 seed. Wilton beat them 19-1, and then number 11 New Fairfield, Wilton beat them 11-5. So,
and Murph,
when you're an FCI team and you get to the states, you're probably going to win some games.
Yeah.
Play another FCI.
We're talking with Tim Murphy. And Murph, as I look over at the girls' side, the Wilton girls are expected to play tonight, of course, again, weather permitting, as they take on Simsbury at Cheshire. That's a 7 o'clock face-off. And, the number 9 seeded Warriors on the girls' side, again, in a semifinal, they would get the winner of Conard and Darien. What kind of chance do you give the girls' lacrosse team?
Well, I think Darien will be the favorite, but Wilton obviously can hang with them. I would say Darien's probably slightly better, but again, one game for a state title, who knows?
And what would it seem like Wilton have to do to beat Darien if they are to meet up in the final?
Yeah, I think Darien's just got good players all over the field. It's just going to be Wilton's just going to have to play like a career day for everybody. I sense that Wilton is getting better right now. Playoffs have gone on. I know McKenna Pearsall, one of the best players, was on the basketball team that won a state title, and I think she's finally kind of rounding into her dominant self. So that's a help, and she's great on the draws. So it could be a different result in the finals if they play.
I already see a couple of games have been postponed on girls lacrosse. Looks like Southington High School will now host Conard and Darien at 5, and there you go. Wilton and Simsbury has been moved to tomorrow at 7. So there you go. That just coming across. So those games. Have been,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So those games have been postponed. They're just postponing all over the place now.
Wow.
So that will make. And again, those games getting moved to Southington, just so we're clear on that, the games have been moved to Southington. That is Class L, Conard and Darien, as well as Wilton and Simsbury, and that is girls lacrosse.
So Wilton's moved to tomorrow.
Yes.
Girls lacrosse.
Yep. That just moved about 30 seconds ago.
And I got to say, since we've started this phone call, it has gotten a lot darker.
It has gotten darker, to be fair. And I get it. It's a tough spot to be in for the CIAC. You know, I want to turn over, because we haven't talked to you in a few days, Murph. I want to turn back over to baseball for a moment. We had kind of maybe we all had high hopes for the Warriors on the baseball side of things. I don't know. Certainly as FCAC champions, I thought maybe they'd go a step farther, but they kind of flamed out pretty quickly. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, that winning that FCAC title these days is such a bigger deal in a way for a lot of sports that kind of supersedes the state for good or bad. But I think there's always going to be kind of a little bit of letdown. And I think their pitchers were just, the two main pitchers, Morin and Ward, had pitched a lot that week, especially Morin. So they rested, Ward. They won the state opener with Ward, but then Trevor Blond, the third pitcher, who was good at the beginning of the year. He pitched the second game, and so they didn't get to start Morin at all in the States. He would have started in the third game if they had made it to the quarterfinals. So I think it was just a matter of, and also the rain outs. They had to play those games right in a row. And Norwalk is obviously a tough team, and that was their third time playing them in Norwalk.
Now, do you know where or when we'll see JT Morin again? Will he go on and play, or where will we see him? He was so good in the postseason. I'm just curious if you have any idea where we'll see him next.
I believe he's going to play Division III, UMass Lowell. I'm not quite sure about that, but somewhere Division III in Massachusetts. I believe that's where he's headed.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Certainly, as always, we say it's a good time of year. It's a crazy time of year, I know. So, Murph, we'll look forward to talking with you again. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
All right. Tim Murphy joining us from the Wilton Bulletin as well as the Ridgefield Press. We'll take a time out here, just kind of getting the seats warm on this Tuesday edition of Nutmeg Sports. Florian over on the controls. Jenny's running things on the directorial side. The dictatorial side. No, she's directing for sure. We're out for a break. We continue on right after this on HANradio.com. Nutmeg Sports. It's 2:20 Tuesday afternoon. I'm Rob Adams. Alex Hager alongside of me, and coming over from the Ridgefield office is Rocco Veluzzo. Rocco, how are you?
Good, Rob. How are you?
Good. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by here today.
No problem.
Were you able to find the office okay?
Yeah, I've been here before. Yeah, I'd say.
I didn't doubt it. I didn't doubt it.
Finding Shelton High, that was a different story the other day.
Yeah, that can be tricky. Shelton, have you ever been to Shelton, Alex? To Shelton High?
No.
That is it is kind of tricky if you've never been there, kind of back off in the woods. But anyway, diving into things, teams that you're covering, where are we in terms of lacrosse?
Lacrosse, well, we've got the Weston High boys team. They're believe the last boys team from the SWC that's still alive in the state tournament. They're in Class S, and they're playing in the semifinals tomorrow against Granby Memorial.
All right. So what do you think of them?
Granby Memorial or
Well, both.
Granby.
Yeah, let's break it all down.
Okay, well, Granby Memorial. I know Granby Memorial plays in the NCC, the Northern Connecticut, North Central Connecticut Conference, and they've got an impressive record. I believe it's 18-1 overall, and they're the top seed. Weston is the 13th seed at 11-8 overall, but the records don't seem to mean much in state tournaments, as we all know.
Yeah, I mean that's what we seem to understand. And what about this Weston team? What's going right for them that gets them to this point?
Well, Weston plays in a difficult Southwest Conference against a lot of tough schools, and like Joel Barlow, Newtown, New Fairfield, New Milford, among the better teams there. And Weston, it has a very strong defense. Was one of the things it has in its favor. I believe it's only surrendered like about 6.2 goals against average so far this season, which is I think among the top 7 in the state in that's a statistic.
Alex, why don't you go ahead and dive in?
I was going to say, looking at Weston's results from this season, they've actually taken on quite a few out of state opponents. And even though some of those were losses, they played Briarcliff and fell 7-5. Pella Memorial, also from New York, they beat 8-5. North Rockland, they lost to 13-11. And then they blew a team from North Kingstown, Rhode Island, out of the water 18-2. So they have experience playing out of conference. And even in the games they lost, they looked like they were well-contended games. So, I mean, the way that I see it, it looks like they're pretty prepared to take on this one-seed Granby.
Yes. In fact, Weston has never been, even in its losses, has never been blown out. They can play with anybody who they happen to take on. And they do play a lot of out-of-state teams because they want to stay sharp. So like you said, there are teams from Rockland, New York, Briarcliff Manor, among a few of them that they've played and actually been able to compete with.
And that seems to always be a good thing for a lot of the teams in Connecticut. I wish more would do that in other sports. I know you're limited in terms of schedule and conference, but for lacrosse, and I know we know this from watching Darien, for instance, Alex, you get to go to Long Island, you get to go up to Niskayuna, New York, you get to, as you said, there's Yorktown and Briarcliff and Pleasantville and some of these other schools from Westchester County, Lakeland and others that you don't normally get to see in any other sport. And I kind of think that's a good thing, and it's a good level of competition for these teams.
Definitely. And not just Weston, too. I believe some other teams in the SLBC also go out of state to play opponents. I believe Joel Barlow has played Wantagh, New York,
Right.
Long Island
Right.
a few times in the past few seasons, and it's gone, I think, each way. They've been close games in any case, but, yeah, they've done it as well, so it makes sense for a lot of these teams to go venture and see what else is out there.
And I think something else that could be helpful in this Weston Granby matchup is a lot of Granby's games are sort of uncharacteristic of a one seed. A lot of times, especially in Double L, we're seeing the higher seeds. You know, all of their wins are 12-1 or 18-1 or something. But you know, Granby's only winning games by 3 or 4 goals almost every time. So you know, they're definitely a fallible team. And Weston, with their experience, like you said, they're staying sharp with out of conference opponents. I think can knock off the one seed.
Yeah, I think Weston's chances are good as well. In fact, they played Grand Memorial last year, and it was a close game. It was 9-7 Weston in the first round, I believe. So they've played Weston before, when Weston's played them before, and so they know what to expect as well.
And on the other side of the bracket is St. Joe's and East Catholic in the 10-6 game. And St. Joe's, the defending Class S champion, trying to get another FCAC team back into the championship. Maybe you wind up with, two market teams for us, which would be Weston and St. Joe's, and be kind of fun if it came out that way.
Well, Rob, that wouldn't be a first in Class S for, because Weston, in fact, played St. Joe's, I believe, in 2009, 10, and 2013. It lost in 2009. That was the year before John Matthews became head coach, and when he came in 2010, they won 2010 and won 2013. Both close games, but Weston has made I think a total of five times it's gone to the Class S championship since 2007. So it definitely has a postseason experience there.
At this time of year, and I've asked this of other guys, and I don't always get a chance to talk with you about this, but at this time of year, you're trying to juggle so many teams and so many games. How do you decide what you're going to cover right now?
Well, fortunately, at this point, there are no conflicts for me. I also cover Joel Barlow High School in Reading Easton.
Right.
But unfortunately, Barlow lost to Daniel Hand of Madison in the quarterfinal game on Saturday. It was a one-goal game at that, so I wouldn't have to decide whether to split my time between Barlow or Weston in that respect.
In the regular season, though, is there that struggle of, all right, I've covered Barlow this many times, now I feel like I got to go cover Weston? Do you have that kind of struggle, or how do you pick a game?
Well, let's see, a couple factors. One is proximity.
Sure.
That's always a good thing if the team is close by, playing opponent is close by. I would like to go to usually the better game or the game that's meaningful, which has a bearing on its spot in its division in the Southwest Conference, or would have like playoff implications. Could be a preview of what's going to be down the road in the postseason, or something that would affect the seedings like that.
That's Rocco Veluzzo of the, all the different papers you cover.
Well,
Too many of them.
Reading, Weston, Easton.
There you go. 3 papers, and it keeps you busy for sure. And it's as I said to Murph, it's a fun time of year, but is it as stressful as it seems?
In a way, it is. It's stressful sometimes because you're watching a close game and you're on pins and needles in that respect. But when things fall into place, like as I mentioned, I don't have any conflicts with any of the state tournament games.
Yeah.
That makes it a lot easier. So right now, the other lacrosse games that are going on, the Barlow girls in Class M, they're playing Daniel Hand of Medicine just like the boys are.
Right.
They're playing tomorrow, I believe. No, I'm sorry, they're playing tonight actually at West Haven High, and the Barlow volleyball team also was in the Class M finals. They won yesterday against Wolcott Tech, and they're playing on Friday in Shelton. I believe the winner, I'm sorry, I don't know the results. It was the winner of the New Canaan, was it the Ridgefield? I'm sorry, that's Class L. This was Newington. Newington.
It really does.
So it is
folks.
it's pretty complex.
Yeah, it really does get complex to not only keep everything from this year in mind, but to try to keep the other years in your mind as well. If you've been around as long, say as a Rocco, or even myself for that matter, kind of keeping it all straight. It's a job. It's a task.
But I gotta say, something that adds complexity, and I don't know if this adds stress or kind of helps alleviate it or just makes it more interesting. Something I was born into as a sports journalist is the fact that you can be at one game and be keeping up with 5 other ones on Twitter, which is, a whole new level of depth. And for me, that's always been there. But, I'll be at a Darien softball game, and I'll be getting the baseball results from the road and the boys lacrosse results from, just on another field, and the girls lacrosse who are playing it up in Ridgefield or whatever. And, it definitely adds another spinning plate to balance, but I think it keeps things fun and interesting.
Oh, it definitely does, but it's a new world for, as opposed to what we dealt with not all that long ago.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all that long ago that you were kind of getting information trickled to you via hopefully a cell phone call, believe it or not, or before that. I mean, it was like word of mouth, or more things might have been on the radio. I mean, there was a lot of different options, but not the way we can process it today.
No, it's a whole new world.
Yeah, it certainly is. What else is going on with you? How's everything else?
Well, aside from the playoffs, most things have wound down now. Tennis finished up last week. That is a team competition. The Weston boys won the state Class M championship. They had previously played in S, but moved up this year due to a slight increase in school enrollment. But I understand that might just be a one-time deal. They might be back in Class S last year. Like the girls, Western girls moved up to Class M last year. Mm-hmm. Now they're back in Class M this year. But with Western, the boys totally dominated Class S. They won 12 titles in 13 seasons. And
wow.
Yeah, and now I think this makes 13 and 14 between one Class M and all the rest of Class S. Boys track had quite a season at the Weston High, of course. The boys team won the Southwest Conference Championship and the State Class M Championship, and the girls won the Southwest Conference Championship, and they placed 4th in Class M in the states. And on the Barlow side, the girls tennis team repeated as Southwest Conference champions, and the boys were Southwest Conference runners-up in volleyball. They lost to Massac, but they have shot another championship come Friday night. So we'll see how that goes.
We certainly stay busy, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
And Rocco's one of them who does it for sure. And then finally gets to take a deep breath in a couple of days.
Yeah, it'll be strange though. Things all of a sudden will just end abruptly, and I don't mind at that point. I mean, I can look forward to a little bit of a respite of sorts.
Absolutely.
Even weirder for me, I'm graduating.
So. I know. So it's really a new world.
Comes to a close, I'm done.
Yep, that's it. You're done. Yeah. So, Rocco, thanks so much for taking the ride out here today. Great to see you.
My pleasure, Rob. Thanks again. Good to see you.
All right, Rocco Veluzzo. We take a timeout. We continue on Nutmeg Sports 233 on HANradio.com, streaming live on the Hersam Acorn Network.
The long winter is finally astern. Bait is invading the harbors, coves, and inlets. Stripers, fluke, and porgies are on the move. In the streams and lakes, trout, smallmouth, largemouth, and walleye have moved out of hibernation. At the dock shop, it's all systems go. And now in 2 locations, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, and their newest location at 609 Riverside Avenue in Westport. Bait, tackle, apparel, and of course, all the marine and nautical accessories that they're known for are ready for you at the dock shop. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport. Visit us at dockshop.com.
Did you know that taking dance lessons is a great date night idea? Arthur Murray Grand Ballroom of Greenwich is a fabulous place to learn to dance and meet new people. Located at 6 Lewis Street, our studio is staffed with professional instructors ready to teach you salsa, waltz, rumba, hustle, tango. There's a dance for every season. And we are rated #1 on the knot.com. We are the wedding dance specialists. Take advantage of our new student offer, only $49. Call 203-769-1800. Visit us online at arthurmurraygreenwich.com.
The biggest day in Connecticut lacrosse is around the corner, and you won't want to miss it. HAN Network's production team will be bringing you all 3 Connecticut Lacrosse Championship games and live streaming video through the CIAC and NFHS Network on Saturday, June 13th. This is Rob Adams. I'll have the play-by-play live from Brian McMahon High School. The 2015 Connecticut Lacrosse Championships through the CIAC and NFHS Network, and produced by the HAN Network. Don't miss it.
Does advertising on HANradio.com work? Just ask Coastal Orthopedics. They ran spots with us, and within 24 hours they had 21 walk-ins and 8 calls to their new immediate care center. To advertise on HANradio.com, call 203-417-5199 and ask for Marianne Hersam.
You're listening to Hersam Acorn Radio.
Sports, there we go. We're back at 2:35. Having fun?
I'm having fun.
Yeah, what's not
Why
to
not?
have fun about? Again, no games today, which is why you've got my somewhat smiling face here on this Tuesday edition of the show. Now, tomorrow's going to be a little bit of a different animal. We have to go over to Brian McMahon High School for the 2 lacrosse games, so looking like we could either be pushing back the start time of the show or rebroadcasting this one. We'll let you know for sure, but certainly want to get over there as soon as possible so we can start setting up for tomorrow. It'll be a busy day for all of us. You're probably off to go watch some softball, I assume.
I think I will be. That game might be later at night, so I'll see where I am tomorrow afternoon.
All right, so maybe we'll see Alex over at McMahon. But definitely a busy couple of days for us coming up both tomorrow and then Saturday as well. Thursday, Friday now will be quote-unquote dark in terms of games, but we'll be back with first the 2 games tomorrow, the 2 semifinal games that will be at McMahon, and then all 3 championship games on Saturday, which will certainly keep our dance card hopping over the next couple of days. Now, the thing about that is to understand that you will not hear or see those games on HANradio.com. We're producing the broadcast, but you're going to need to go to the CIAC and NFHS to be able to access the broadcasts. So that is how you're going to be able to find them. And my understanding is, and I don't have times or dates yet, but also on delay later on CPTV. So kind of an exciting time for us as we dive into something new and, a little nerve-wracking, but we'll have a good time with it over the next couple of days.
That's all we got to do. Keep taking steps in the right direction,
Keep plugging along for sure. So 2:36, Dave Stewart coming up in a couple of minutes. I saw he sent along a note with the All FCIAC Boys Lacrosse group. We can talk about that as well in a couple of minutes. But, there's all kinds of things to bat around right now in sports, Alex, and certainly on the, on the bigger scale, on the smaller scale. What are the things that are on your mind today?
I mean, for me, it's just, it's really interesting. I think that right now we're at a point where it's sort of the summation of a lot of different really interesting matchups, and I think it's really thinned out. And honestly, the way that I see it, some of the better games were in earlier rounds, just the way that things worked out. I mean, we had some really competitive games. We had some surprise teams. We had teams kind of making miracle runs, especially in the baseball realm, which I was following really closely, but also, looking at softball and a little bit of lacrosse as well. You had obviously a lot of kind of lopsided first-round games, but I just remember back in the baseball bracket, you had Stamford making a run, knocking out Fairfield Prep. You had Norwalk beating NFA. You had Greenwich beating Ward and then Darien in consecutive days and consecutive games, which was amazing. And I think there was a pretty incredible parity early on that not a lot of people expected.
And Greenwich actually had Staples in a 3-0 hole early on before the Wreckers went on and won. And certainly the softball from last night, I'm disappointed for Darien that they don't get a chance to play tonight. A couple of games did happen last night, including one that I was at, which was just a wonderful performance by Ashley Gillette in the first game for Oxford against Tolland. And, their head coach, Bill Pompa, their team was there first before anybody else arrived. I was already there setting up, and I chatted with him for a little bit. And, you don't want to say it on the air at the time, but he's saying to me, we're glad we're here. But you could tell his hopes weren't entirely high. They hoped they could get a little something going, but as good as their pitcher was hanging around in that game, Gillette was just that much better with the 17 strikeouts and the no-hitter. They just couldn't get anything going. They had 3 base runners the whole game. She had just pitched a perfect game against Rocky Hill in the quarterfinals, and now here she is throwing a no-hitter in the semis, and really, so good, and you can't make mistakes to a team like that, and Oxford obviously made Tolland pay.
Some of those softball pitchers are just so amazing. I mean, I often am just kind of baffled by how a lot of times a baseball pitcher, will have all kinds of arm issues if they throw too quickly. And I've had it defended to me by people who've played softball and by people who've watched softball, and they say, it's just a different motion. But if you've ever watched a softball game, it's a lot of movement on your arm, and it is impressive that...
I agree.
I mean, girls can not only pitch back-to-back days, they'll pitch 3 games a week. They'll pitch complete games, and they'll pitch well, too, which is incredible.
In the nightcap, and we don't get a lot of stats, unfortunately. A lot of teams don't like to publish their stats because they feel that it's used for scouting purposes and things like that. Anyway, in the nightcap, we saw St. Joe's, and, of course, kind of a nice connection for us that the brother of Dan Gardella, who's part of the HAN family, or rather the sister of Dan Gardella, excuse me, his sister Katie homered yesterday for St. Joe's, so that was kind of fun. But all that being said, in that nightcap, they did enough to get the win, and I didn't think Nicole Williams had her best stuff against Seymour. Seymour's a good team for sure. Rayanne Geffert was pretty good as well, but Nicole Williams homered. They got 2 other homers in that game, and again, 5-3. Not Williams' best performance, but good enough to get the job done. And again, on the other side, Rayanne Geffert, which was my original point, you don't often get numbers. She was 19-4 coming into the game. 19-4. She finishes 19-5. So you think about how many games she pitched in, and that's the difference between softball and baseball for pitching right there.
It's just incredible. I mean, a lot of times in FCX baseball or anywhere really at the high school level, it's impressive if a team can string together 3 solid pitchers for baseball.
Yeah.
It's tough to fill out a rotation at the high school level. And in softball, teams only need 1 pitcher. And it's absolutely incredible how well they do as well. I frankly do not understand it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I could, but I mean, I'm perennially impressed by what people are doing, especially this late in the playoffs, where not only have you been pitching the whole season, but you've already pitched through your county playoffs, you've already pitched a couple rounds of state playoffs, and they're stringing together, double-digit strikeout games.
So we already know that in Class L it'll be Fitch and East Haven, and we know St. Joe's and Oxford will meet in Class M. They have yet, of course, to put up the sites, dates, and times. We know it's either Friday or Saturday. We know it's either DeLuca Field, which, by the way, is an awesome facility, or it'll be at West Haven. But I really liked DeLuca Field. What a fun place that was to go out and check out last night.
I'm excited to go up there.
Yeah, you will really enjoy it. It just feels like a little stadium for softball. Almost feels like in the middle of nowhere. Almost.
Yeah.
It's just kind of this cool little place where the Stratford Brakettes play. And I was told the Brakettes are not really having a Brakette-esque season. In any event, the other games, when they get played, will be East Granby and Holy Cross, as well as Thomaston and Hale Ray. That's in Class S. Those are the semifinals. And on the double L side is Darien, as we're talking about, against Cheshire. And they will take on the winner. The winner of that game, of course, will take on the winner of Southington and South Windsor. And I would imagine, not being a homer, of course, but you kind of like where this Darien softball team is.
I absolutely do like where the Darien softball team is. I talk about it a lot, but I think that the amount of seniors you have on a team is entirely contingent to your success. It's something I saw on Darien baseball and Darien softball as well. They've got 4 senior starters in the infield.
Right.
Erica Oshro, their pitcher who's committed to UVA, has been one of their best hitters, as well as their everyday starting pitcher. Kelly Vidola, their second baseman, is the all-time team hits leader, and they have a lineup that is good any year, and they have put together a lot of really solid wins. That's not to say they haven't been tested. They played Newtown. They only pulled that one out 3-2, but they've shown that they can hold on where it matters most, and it's a team with a lot of experience. That being said, we did talk about yesterday, we talked with Steve Buono on Nutmeg Sports,
right,
and he was saying that this Cheshire team is definitely one that has to be taken seriously. So, Darien definitely can't rest on their laurels, but I think if they stick with their bread and butter and they play with what's been giving them wins all year long, I think that it's a game they can win and a game that they'll deserve to win.
We'll take one more break before we come back and jump back on the phone again. So out for a break. We continue on 2:44. Back after this on Nutmeg Sports on HANradio.com.
Located in the heart of picturesque downtown Ridgefield at 13 Governor Street, Colby's is the area's premier retailer for blinds, shades, shutters, and draperies, and is one of the select few Hunter Douglas Gallery dealers. A family-owned and operated company, Colby's experienced staff will work with you in choosing the best treatments for your home or office and offer free measuring and expert installation. Colby's also carries an extensive line of decorative fabrics including Schumacher, Durley, Tebow, and more. Or browse over 400 books in our wallpaper library from famous designers such as Stroheim, Schumacher, Ralph Lauren, Tebow, and York. Take advantage of our Fashion in Motion savings event with savings and rebates on Hunter Douglas shades with Power Rise technology. Colby's of Ridgefield. We are committed to your complete satisfaction. 203-438-8531.
It's lots of characters. Specializing in children's birthday parties with your child's favorite characters. When you want to party hardy, when you need to celebrate, call us, we won't be late. We help create lasting memories for you and your child on their special day. Call us at 203-590-1791 or visit our website at lotsofcharacters.org for more information and to see our party packages. Lots of Characters, 203-590-1791 or online at lotsofcharacters.org.
Now you can keep up with what's happening in Darien with the convenience of the Darien Times Online. Your choice. Print or digital subscription for just $45 a year. Or get the print and digital bundle for just $10 more, $55 a year. To subscribe to the Darien Times, go to hersamsecure.com/CIRC or call the circulation department at 203-894-3388. The Darien Times, now in print and online. Don't miss a single issue. Subscribe today.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com.
Back with you on Nutmeg Sports 246. Let's bring in the FCAC guru, the guy from FCAC.net, and of course the sports editor of the New Canaan Advertiser, not to be confused with any cats except for Lola. Dave Stewart. Dave, how are you?
All right. How you doing today, Rob?
Good. I'm good. You sent us over a pretty cool email about some all FCAC lacrosse players, and it's a pretty good team as we take a look at it, Dave.
Well, there's some great players in the FCAC. I mean, those top four teams, especially Darien, New Canaan, Greenwich, of course, and Ridgefield, are just really stacked. And you know, Wilton, Staples, all those. I mean, there's a bunch of good kids in there. You could probably make up a couple of a few teams with this roster. You know.
And all,
you
and
can
all
go wrong any way you turn.
Exactly. All names that you're familiar with. On the attack side,
Yep.
It's Decker Curran, Michael Kraus, Simon Matthias, Justin Meichner, Colin Minikis, Jack Niffen. I mean, these are all names without reading them. Well, I can read them all. Ryan Dunn, Kevin Lindley, Michael Sands, and Michael Reel. Those are all players that we've seen in one form or another.
Yeah, and if you're a defense, they're scary guys. You know, they're you see them in your nightmares. They're really just all top-notch players, you know. Yeah, I mean, they get it done. They get it done when they're out there. You know, I've seen, obviously, being in New Canaan, I've seen Kraus and Meichner play a ton of times. And, you know, when those two are ticking, they really make New Canaan run.
The midfielders, Ian Burgoyne, Peter Darth, Will Perry, Kyle Smith, Ryan O'Connell, Hudson Hamill, Scooter Harrington, Owen Tolan, Brad Alexander, Harrison Bardwell, Brendan King, and Jack Book. And again, all names that I know I've said at one time or another, Dave.
Isn't it amazing that, you know, that you look at these guys and you just realize how deep the FCAC really is in lacrosse, and you've seen it play out in the tournaments. And I know Glastonbury got by Staples, which was a big win for Glastonbury. But you know, as far as the FCAC teams, the way they're doing right now, everything's coming up roses for them right now. You know, and it looks like there could be a couple of state championships, if not three, on the horizon.
On the defense side, it's Mark Ivanchik, Griffin Tidy, Paul Vellante, Frank Cognetta, Daniel Traver, Lucas Jackson, David Strupp, Brian McGuire, Josh Willis, Ed Larkin, Peter Swindell, Alec Orapol, Isaac Paparo, and Sterling O'Hara. And the goalies are Tommy Rogan of Greenwich, Michael Sullivan, and Andrew Pugiles. And wow. I mean,
well, those last two are the face-off guys,
right?
But yeah, that defense is just. I mean, you start with Mark Ivanchik. He's a monster out there, and you go down the line. There are just a bunch of great defenders there. Tommy Rogan's a good goalie, and there's a bunch of guys that aren't on that list, you know, and they really could be. And yeah, and in terms of face-offs, Michael Sullivan, when I saw Greenwich play New Canaan, he just was unbelievable, and he was the key to that victory. And you know, of course, Andrew Puglisi is just awesome for Darien. I mean, you know, obviously, if you don't have the ball, you can't win. That's where it starts.
And I got to say, a lot of those names too are, at least from the Darien side that I'm recognizing, are not even seniors. So I think that speaks to the quality of lacrosse we're about to see in coming years as well. And then in addition to that, you look at a lot of those names of players who are seniors, and even a healthy handful of juniors who are committed to D1 schools and some of the top lacrosse programs in the country. I mean, it's talked about all the time that Fairfield County is just a hotbed for the sport, and I think that it's true year after year.
Yeah, if you look at this list, I mean, I'm looking at it from the New Canaan angle too, and Kyle Smith, Ryan O'Connell, David Strupp, Peter Swindell, these guys are all back, and you look at a guy like a goalie like Drew Morris, who's had some awesome games for New Canaan. He's not even on there; he's a sophomore, and these guys are just. These are the top, the best of the best, and I think that's why the FCAC does so well in the state tournaments, and I think that's why you see them do so well against teams. I know you guys were talking about playing teams from out of state before, and that's what I love seeing Darien go up against some of the teams they've played. New Canaan plays a lot of good teams. I think they both played St. Anthony's this year, and those are the games you love to see, and that's where these guys can really test themselves and. They come up looking good in a lot of those games.
Dave, what can we do? I mean, let's see if we can put our hats on here and make it work so that we can really have Darien and New Canaan play one more time, even though they play in different classes.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because I looked at New Canaan's first two games, and they've outscored their opponents 34-3. The games they haven't given up a goal in the first half. The games are pretty much over at halftime, and really, if you're watching the game, the reserves are getting more playing time in the playoffs than they were during the regular season, unfortunately. And that's not really the way it's supposed to be. I think tomorrow night's game, New Canaan and Wilton, should be a good one. And I think that, not to take anything away from Daniel Hand and Notre Dame West Haven, but I think the winner of the New Canaan-Wilton game tomorrow night is going to go into the state final without a question as the favorite. And, you never know. One game, one day, a team could come out and do some good things and, take advantage of another team's mistakes. But for the most part, these two teams, New Canaan and Wilton, when they go into the final, one of them is going to be whichever one wins is going to be the favorite going in. And then Class L is dominated by the SCAC right now.
We talked with Murph a little while ago, got the Wilton perspective. How about the New Canaan perspective?
Well, right now, I've seen them play the first two games, and talking to Chip the other day, very happy with the way they're playing together. I think they played probably their worst game of the season, probably their worst game in quite a while against Darien in the FCAC semifinals, and they were very disappointed. I know there were a lot of unhappy New Canaan fans, a lot of unhappy New Canaan players, and I think they kind of turned that around and have kind of refocused themselves. They are obviously they're going in against teams that they are expected to beat, but the way they're playing and the way they're going right at them, it would be really easy for a team that's as good as New Canaan to take it easy on some of these teams and maybe not come out as strong, and maybe at the end of the first quarter it's like a 3-2 game or 2-1 or something like that. And New Canaan's really took it to them and has looked crisp, has looked strong on defense. Drew Morris was he's just been great so far, and he was awesome against Guilford on Saturday. Had a shutout midway through the third quarter. And I will give Guilford credit. I mean, you see 15-2, and you would think that they're not getting many shots, and they were shut out for the first half and halfway through the third quarter. But they were getting shots inside, and Drew was taking care of them. So, you got to give him credit too. But the New Canaan's looked very, very strong right now, and I'm sure they'll be ready for Wilton, given what Wilton did to them the last time they played in the FCX quarterfinals.
I gotta say, a lot of times, in a lot of these sports where we see some kind of lopsided first-round matchups, I want to give a chance to the lower team. Even when you get deeper in, a lot of the FCX teams, especially in lacrosse, are so overpowered, and you want to give a chance to lower teams. But like you were talking about, is that even rational? I mean, these teams are so deep that you've got kids coming off the bench making all FCX teams. You've got kids coming off the bench scoring hat tricks late in games in deep rounds of the state playoffs. And, anyone who's been to a lacrosse game, especially around here, knows that every time you've got 10 kids on the field, there's 35 kids on the bench. And from these better schools, every one of those kids is able to compete on a high level. Do you think that some of these teams that have good records in kind of weaker conferences, or teams that have worse records in a really strong conference like the FCAC even have a chance?
I think that it depends on who you're playing. If you switch over to hockey for a minute, like Bo Hickey used to say, he wanted to play all the great teams at the beginning of the season. He used to set up hockey games against Hamden, Notre Dame West Haven, Notre Dame Fairfield, Prep, all those teams, because even if he lost all four, which they didn't do most of the time, but even if they lost all four, at the end of the season they're set up better. You'd rather do that than see a team go up against weak teams and play them all the time. And I think unfortunately some of the teams that we're seeing that got higher seeds and have a good record have played weak schedules, and really, when they go into a game against a New Canaan, a Darien, a Ridgefield, a Greenwich, they really don't know what to do. They haven't seen anything like that. They haven't seen any depth like that. They get worn down physically. They're just not conditioned to play like that, and I think that's where the FCAC benefits from. I think not only from playing each other, but also from their proximity to New York and being able to play some of those teams and setting up games against New Jersey teams, New York teams, Long Island teams, and getting all that stuff in. Because I think you're absolutely right. I know if you tell somebody, I think this team from upstate, which has a good record, has a chance against one of these great FCAC teams, people look at you like you've got two heads, I do like to point out to everybody too that it is high school sports, so you never know. I mean, there is more, I guess, just there's more variation in terms of how they play one day to the next or one game to the next, but it is hard to see some of these teams losing unless they go in a head-to-head matchup with each other.
Is this basically New Canaan's to go win?
Well, you'd have to look at right now. New Canaan's the highest seed left. They also have played the strongest schedule. I'd have to give, when they played Wilton before, it was a 10-9 game. That was the second time around. So you have to say that was anybody's game. So I think Wilton's got a shot. I would think that the winner of this game, like I was saying, is not a shoe-in, but is going to be a very heavy favorite for the championship. And it's unfortunate that you would like to see maybe Wilton on the other side of the bracket from New Canaan, and then maybe they can meet in the finals and make it a great day, for the final, great showcase for the championship game. I think it was John Wiseman was telling me after after Wilton lost to New Canaan, there were a few years ago where Darien played Wilton and knocked them out, I think by 2 goals in the state quarterfinals. Played New Canaan in the next game, went to like double overtime, and New Canaan won. That was up at Ludlow. That was a great game, 2 great teams. And then in the final, they played New Fairfield, which had a great record, and they won by like 12 goals. So it was more of a party for them than it was a game at that point. And I think that's unfortunate when you get those great games in the quarterfinals and semifinals. You almost wish the CIC could come up with some sort of system like they have in hockey.
Yeah.
Ice hockey, where you have a Division I, Division II. I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah, no, Murph said basically the same thing about a half hour ago.
Yeah. It just would make more sense. I mean, it's unfortunate. It was a little better when Darien was down in was in Class M, and then they moved up to Class L. So as a New Canaan guy, I'll blame Darien for that. But it was something to look. It was something to look forward to, New Canaan, because I know these New Canaan kids. They want another shot at Darien. They would love to see Darien again. And it's the same thing for the girls. The girls don't have another FCAC team in Class M because Wilton's in L. So and Wilton and New Canaan have played in the last 3 state finals for Class M, and that's not going to happen for the girls this year, unfortunately. And they've won their games in blowouts too. So, while it's nice to be winning and it's nice to have a state championship to possibly look forward to, it'd be nice to have at least the boys are getting one challenge tomorrow night, and possibly in the final too. You never know. Those 2 teams. The one thing when you get to the final, these teams all have momentum and they've all been winning. You've got a team that's won 3 games in a row at least. So, we'll see. We'll see. But we got to get by the semifinals first.
I gotta say, yeah, I very much like your idea about splitting into kind of tiered divisions, because as someone who came into the high school sports landscape fairly recently, I remember, my freshman and sophomore year, I'd see the one that sticks out to me was I remember in the soccer bracket, our soccer team was a little bit above 500 one year, and they came in and they were the 15 seed or whatever and knocked off a 2 seed in the first round or something, and I was shocked. And everyone who knew what they were talking about said, oh, they were playing at tech school. Like, of course, they have a good record, but it wasn't really a competitive team. And then every year I'd see that more and more, and it translated to basketball and to lacrosse and baseball. And, you know, the divisional system works a lot better. I think it produces more competitive games. You're going to see a lot more rivalries, which, as we know, we talked about this during the Darien New Canaan baseball game, that every sport for a high school, they get, their one chance all season to take on the rival, whether that be Darien New Canaan or one of the other very strong rivalries we have in the FCAC. Every team wants the chance to prove themselves, and a lot of times teams want more than one chance, especially when you're looking at a team like the football team or the hockey team who, between Darien and New Canaan, had a number of chances to go head-to-head, and I think that some of the other teams want that opportunity as well.
Well, you look at New Canaan and Darien, they played each other twice. New Canaan took one, Darien took the other. Now Darien took obviously the better one in the playoffs. But hey, play a third time. It's the rubber match and see where it goes. It would be a lot of fun. And last year they did get to meet 3 times, and they were 3 great games, all won by Darien, but very close games. I believe it was 1 goal, and 2 goals, if I'm not mistaken. There's no. The one thing about it, there's no perfect system, but I think the division system they use in ice hockey, which I think would work well for lacrosse, I think is just based on common sense. What teams are the strong teams, and what teams still have a ways to go to get there. And, in hockey, a Trinity Catholic gets to play New Canaan and a Darien during the regular season, but they're not quite, up to the same par as they are overall, or West Hill, let's say. They get to play them, they get to show their stuff, but you got it. I think the division system in hockey does use common sense. I don't know if it would work for every sport, but I'm sure it would work for boys and girls lacrosse. If you look at it just for an example, the girls game semifinal matchup, they're the number 4 seed. The New Canaan girls are number 4 seed. They're playing New Fairfield, who's a number 1 seed. Now, New Fairfield is 15-0-1, so no losses. And the one tie was to Fairfield Ward, who they tied 9-9. New Canaan played Ward during the season and beat them 16-1. So you got to wonder how that matchup's going to go. I know they've got to play each other head-to-head, and there's always matchups to worry about, but that score doesn't excite me for a great game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Dave, will we see you tomorrow over at McMahon? I know we'll see you Saturday.
I will. I'm hoping to be there. We got those double headers. It's gotten a little jammed up because of some of the postponements today, but I'm hoping to be there for both of those games.
All right, cool.
Because there'll be 2 great ones, really.
Yeah, really, it should be. We look forward to seeing you then.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Dave. Dave Stewart of the New Canaan Advertiser with us here on Nutmeg Sports. And with all that said, let's get out of here.
Oh, yeah. But I got to say, I'm going to have to eat my words from early in the episode because it is scary dark outside.
It's getting very dark, so it goes. Back with you tomorrow for Coffee Break. We'll let you know about Nutmeg Sports. We'll let you know about lacrosse. Busy day tomorrow for Alex Hager and all of us here. I'm Rob Adams. Have a good night, everyone. So long.
Hersam, Acorn, and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.
Want to get in touch with HAN Radio? You can find us on Twitter at Hersam Radio, on Facebook at Hersam Acorn Radio, or email us at radio@hersamacorn.com.